What up, HyperChange? Welcome to another episode. Today we're doing something a little bit out of the ordinary. I wanted to do a preview on Snapchat's coming quarterly report, which is coming out this Wednesday after the bell. Huge deal. This is the first time they're releasing financials as a public company, so a ton of stuff to look out for, so wanted to give you guys a quick preview. Will Spiegel be on the call? Biggest question. Sometimes these crazy founders are on the call, sometimes they're not, so we'll be waiting to see if Spiegel put on a suit on the call, who's experienced in with Wall Street, or if he's going to get his hands dirty in the ringer and take questions from analysts himself. I personally think it would be smart and reassuring to investors if Spiegel did show up on the call and honestly just got experience dealing with investors that way, because I think it's a ton of scrutiny to be a public company, get questions from analysts, but it'll only make you stronger, so I'd like to see Spiegel on the call. The biggest thing that everybody is looking for is user growth. So the last time that Snapchat released its data was Q4 2016. They had 158 million daily active users. People using their app every day on average at the end of the quarter was 158 million. Instagram has recently announced that the users of its Stories product passed 200 million. So Instagram has now more people using its clone of Snapchat, the Stories feature, than Snapchat has on its entire platform. Is Instagram's success leading to a decline in Snapchat's users? We don't know. It looks like we may have seen the beginning of that in Q4, and that's why this Q1 report is so important, because we need to see if that decline in user growth is continuing as Instagram continues to succeed. If we see some sort of evidence that Instagram is in fact chipping away at Snapchat's user base and growth rate, the market is really not going to like this. So all eyes are on this user number, and they want to see if Snapchat can continue to grow in the face of all this competition. Personally, I want to see Snapchat put up at least 40% year-over-year daily active user growth. That means they will need to report 170 million daily active users for Q1. That's up 40% from 122 million in Q1 last year. Why is it key that I think they keep that 40% growth rate? Because otherwise the thesis is going to start to crumble. And I published an article about this. I think the company could be worth 50 billion if they hit 300 million users. So growing to that user base and keeping them engaged is critically important. And I think they need to maintain a growth rate above 40% right now for the market to still give them credit as this high growth social media story. Like, I don't think the market's going to give them credit for daily active user growth and being this high tech, fast growing social media company if their user growth suddenly plummets below 40%. If they're above 170 million, it's looking like they're going to be above 40% year over year daily active user growth. If they're below, I think that's going to be a disappointment. But yeah, so all eyes are on this daily active users number. And to be honest, 170 million seems kind of like a stretch to me. If you look at this chart, it looks like Snapchat was only able to add about 5 million new users last quarter. If I'm guessing they're adding 170 million, that's meaning they would need to add 12 million new daily active users this quarter. Pretty tough. In early 2016, Snapchat was showing similar growth rates of adding, 10, 15, 20 million users a quarter. So they can definitely do this. But once again, that was before Instagram came out. So we'll see. Finance-wise, I think Wall Street's kind of going easy on him here. The consensus, according to Yahoo Finance, is 158.1 million for revenue. Like, that's the average that all the analysts are guessing of what Snapchat will report this quarter. Now, Snapchat has given no guidance, so we have really nothing to benchmark this other than their historical results. And if you go by that, it looks like Wall Street's kind of giving them a pass. This 158.1 million number is down 7% from record quarterly revenue of 165 million in Q4 2016, and it would be up about 307% from Q1 last year. And I know that sounds like a crazy growth rate, 307%, but Snapchat is so early in monetizing and ramping their revenue that you really can't look at it as this, like, yes, they are growing incredibly quickly, but that 300% growth rate is going to come down significantly. And if you look sequentially, revenue is actually going down from Q4. But one very important thing to note, Facebook, Twitter, all of these advertising tech companies usually show very strong seasonality in Q4. That means Q4 is almost always their best quarter in terms of revenue and profitability. Q1 is always a little bit of drop off. I think this has something to do with the holiday season, but it's important to keep in mind that just because revenue is down this quarter from the previous quarter, that's not signaling weakness in their business. You need to understand the seasonality first. So Yeah, to sum it up, I think Wall Street is kind of going easy on them with revenue. I would expect Snapchat to beat this if their business is still executing. It looks like some Instagram domination may be being priced in already. So what's going to go down? I think this is an incredibly interesting report, and I think you guys should all watch it, whether you're invested in Snap or not, just as a student of the market, learning from a case study, because I see a very binary outcome with this earnings report. Either Snapchat convinces the market that this bull thesis of them being a new kind of camera-first digital social network, publishing content in partnerships with all these new media companies like Vice is teaming up with them to do a show. Like, if that content strategy is working, if they can still grow their users in the wake of Instagram coming at them with full force, then the market is going to love this quarter. They're going to give them upside to the stock. I could see us hitting new highs. They're going to essentially reiterate the fact that Snapchat will become its own successful social media company, keep that story live, and I think the stock goes up in a big way. But that's assuming we get past the 170 million user number and we get past the 158 million revenue number. If we get a disappointment on those two numbers, then I think the stock gets hit very badly, because the market is going to interpret this as Instagram is actually successfully chipping away at their market share, and therefore this growth story is not on track as it was. All these commitments to pay billions of dollars for Amazon and Google to the cloud no longer make any sense, because you don't have the users to even need that cloud space. So now the whole business is extremely unprofitable and you're not really growing. So downward death spiral is very possible and potentially imminent if Snap cannot convince Wall Street that this growth story is still on track. So that is why there's so much attention and pressure on this first report. I honestly wouldn't want to be Spiegel, because it's going to be scrutinized. What's my gut telling me? Honestly, not good. My gut reaction is that user growth could be really weak and revenue growth could be weak too. And I don't know, I don't have a position in Snap either way, but I'm worried. If you look at the Google Trends data, Snapchat's popularity of the core app term has flatlined. It's flat with Pinterest. It's not even close to Twitter yet. Forget about being close to Instagram. I don't think that's too promising, as an indicator of engagement. The other thing is, if you look at Google Trends of Snap stories versus Instagram stories, Google Trend is much stronger than Snapchat, and it continues to diverge and get more popular where Snap stagnates. I don't know if this is exactly what we're seeing with Instagram users just taking away engagement from Snap, but it looks like that may be the case. Personally, anecdotally, as someone who's 24 and uses both Instagram and Snapchat, there's no question I have seen a significant amount of my friends migrate from posting their stories from Snapchat to Instagram. But I think there's a counterpoint, which is that more people are posting stories as the new form of social media than ever before. Maybe engagement on Snap won't be down just because people are posting stories on Instagram as well. I know a lot of people who are now posting stories on both apps, although I also know people who've simply stopped posting stories on Snap and only doing it on Instagram because they already have a bigger following there. Could see, Snap's story product continually being successful while Instagram is successful, or I could see they're only becoming one story successful, and that's Instagram. Anyway, to sum it up, Google Trends data is not super promising for Snap. X factor. Spectacles are an incredibly interesting product. Snap's foray into augmented reality. Rumors came out that they actually wanted to build a full 360 camera rig to let you capture VR content. That was scrapped. They came out with the spectacles. Now, Facebook came out with that crazy camera product that lets you capture content for VR. So Snapchat as a camera company, I think, has a lot of questions to answer about what their next camera product will be. I don't think, spectacles, I think, isn't just a one-off. I think it's the very, very early beginnings of Snapchat's vision to create consumer hardware. And so I would love to hear more about those ambitions. Even if there is a bad quarter, or even if they don't have a bad quarter, I think it makes a lot of sense for Spiegel to lay out the vision of Snapchat on this call, as this is the first time he's introducing the company to the public. I really want to know more about the vision and roadmap of Snapchat, although they're going to have to be very careful by not giving Zuckerberg too many hints. I would be watching what is the evolution of the Spectacles product line and how does that help your business evolve. That is the first thing on my mind. Another thing that I'm really interested in is partnerships for content. Partnering with Vice to do a show with Action Bronson. That is such cool content that I think they're creating that's right up their demographic, that's exclusive to Snap, that provides a new way to monetize the platform, positions them as not just a social network, but as a platform to consume TV-style media content. I'm very excited about two pieces of Snap's business model. First is the spectacles. Second is this potential content partnerships. So any kind of news on the vision of those two fronts, I think is going to be really important for the long-term thesis of the company. So I would be looking for that in the call as well. The last thing I would be looking for is color on profitability. What are you guys going to do with these massive cloud expenses that are billions and billions of dollars when you're not even producing $1 billion in revenue yet? Like, we either need to see exponential growth in revenue for Snap to have enough economies of scale to be profitable despite these cloud costs, or like, I don't know. I just want to understand how this company makes money while they're spending so many billions on the cloud. Profitability has really been pretty embarrassing thus far, to say the least. Like, they had a positive gross profit in Q4, but that was barely. So they're not showing software company margins yet because their cost structure is so high. So they're going to need to address this. Like, what is the roadmap to getting to profitability? How much cash do they need to get there? What's the timeline? What is the revenue run rate where they don't need to raise more money and they're operating and they're actually producing positive cash flow? All these questions are going to be very critical. Lastly, Snapchat has chosen not to issue guidance, which I think is a very smart move. It's very counterintuitive. A lot of big companies would never do this and never think of doing it because the bankers are like demanding you issue guidance, but brilliant move. Great job, Spiegel, or whoever banker you're hiring that's allowing you not to do this, because I think you're just setting yourself up for failure if you give guidance and then you underwhelm, or like, it's just this entire mind game where people are focused on your numbers relative to guidance, not just your numbers. And I think that psychology is toxic and has killed a lot of companies, in my opinion. Brilliant move by Snap not to issue guidance. But the flip side of that is Wall Street's going to have way more questions because they're going to be way more uncertain without this cushion of guidance to know what the business is doing for their financial models. So I would assume the analysts are kind of going to be freaking out on the call, like, wait, well, what do I plug in on my mod? That'll be pretty funny to watch. To sum it up, the biggest things to watch for Snapchat's upcoming Q1 report this Wednesday is how many daily active users they have. Is this re-accelerating? Is this declining? Is Instagram stories a real threat to this business in the long term? The second piece of the equation is, what is revenue look like? Are they continuing to ramp and grow? Are they getting more profitable, or are they kind of languishing because of this Instagram threat? All of these questions and more are going to be answered on Wednesday. Incredibly hyped for the Snap earnings call. I'll make another video analyzing the results after it happened, my reaction from the conference call. Anyway, wanted to give you guys a quick preview. That's HyperChange. See you guys on Snap earnings. Peace. Should probably do a Snapchat for this. Yo, if anybody has spectacles that they want to send over to the HyperChange team so we can test them out and make a video, let me know. I haven't been able to get my hands on a pair.